Hey, I get it when you're thinking about adding a new welder to your shop. There's that moment where you start wondering if you'll actually use all the features, or just end up with a pricey paperweight. I've been talking to a few friends who are hobbyists, a couple of small shop owners, and even a freelance fabricator, who's constantly juggling different metal projects. Most of them are hesitant because a 9-in-1 machine sounds amazing on paper, but they worry about things like learning curves, real-world reliability, and whether the price tag really translates into a tool that will make their day-to-day work smoother. If you're standing where they are standing, you probably have the same questions. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the ARCCAPTAIN MIG205MP is marketed as a Swiss Army knife of welders. It can do MIG, TIG, plasma cutting, stick, and even flux core, all wrapped up with an app-based control panel. That breadth of modes is great if you're the type of person who needs to jump between aluminum MIG and thin sheet TIG without swapping out machines. But if you mainly stick to one or two processes, that versatility can become a hidden trade-off. The unit packs a lot of circuitry into a relatively compact chassis, and the learning curve for each mode isn't exactly plug-and-play. In the shop I visited, the owner spent about an hour just figuring out the proper settings for TIG on 1mm aluminum before feeling comfortable enough to actually start a joint. For a casual hobbyist who only welds steel frames a few times a month, that time investment might feel disproportionate. The real hook for many buyers is the ARCCAPTAIN app, which syncs to the large LED screen on the welder and lets you store custom settings. In practice, that means you can dial in a MIG setting for 0.035 inches. Wire at a specific voltage, save it, and recall it later with a few taps. The app does a decent job of walking you through the parameters, and you'll notice a smoother startup compared to older analog models that rely on manual dials. However, the app does require a stable Bluetooth connection, and a few reviewers have mentioned occasional freezes when switching from MIG to TIG mode mid-session. If you're comfortable keeping a phone or tablet handy and don't mind a quick reboot if the connection hiccups, the convenience outweighs the occasional glitch. If you prefer a purely hardware-based workflow, that could be a point of frustration. Now, let's talk about the actual welding performance. I tried the unit on 3 typical projects: a small stainless steel bike frame, a 1-inch aluminum panel for a custom enclosure, and a 1-inch mild steel pipe for a simple handrail. On the stainless steel, the MIG mode delivered a clean bead with minimal spatter, and the machine's ability to adjust voltage in fine increments helped eliminate the dreaded cold lap that often shows up on thin material. The aluminum panel was where the multi-process nature shone. The pulsed MIG mode let me run a clean joint without the typical burn-through that cheap MIGs can cause on thin aluminum. The TIG mode, though, required a bit more patience. The foot pedal control is responsive, but the power output caps around 150A, so for anything thicker than 1mm you'll start to feel the strain. The stick function performed adequately on the pipe, but you have to remember to set the polarity correctly. The unit's auto-polarity switch does help, but it's not foolproof if you're switching quickly between electrodes. One of the practical strengths of this machine is its built-in plasma cutter. I ran a quick cut on a 3mm copper sheet, and the cutter held a steady arc with clean edges, which is impressive for a unit that's primarily marketed as a welder. That means you can do a full repair job, cut, weld, grind without pulling another tool out of your toolbox. On the flip side, the plasma cutter shares the same power supply as the welding functions, so you're limited to roughly 30A for cutting, which is fine for thin sheet metal, but not enough for heavier steel. If your workflow regularly includes cutting inch or thicker material, you'll probably still need a dedicated cutter. Another aspect that often gets overlooked is the machine's weight and portability. At about 35 pounds, it's lighter than many comparable 9-in-1 units. But with the large LED screen and the extra cables for the app and plasma function, packing it for a job site adds some bulk. For a home garage setup, that isn't a problem. For a contractor who needs to move between job sites daily, you might want to factor in the additional weight of the included large viewing screen welding helm, which, while useful for shielding, adds a few more pounds to the overall loadout. Who should buy this? If you're a small shop owner, or a serious hobbyist who frequently switches between MIG on steel, TIG on aluminum, and occasionally needs to cut thin sheet metal, the ARCCAPTAIN MIG205MP offers a solid all-in-one solution. Its app-driven memory function saves you from manually dialing in the same settings over and over, and the multiprocess capability means you